What's up, everybody? It's been a while.
It's been some months.
A good while.
It has. But we're back.
Yep.
Better than ever.
Yep. It's me and Jason and Daniel.
That's right.
Caleb wasn't able to make it tonight. So I think in an effort to have something to talk about and not just be talking about our dumbass opinions about the news that always start out with, and I hadn't looked into this, but this is what I think about some bullshit I don't know anything about.
That's what this podcast is all about.
I think we're going to try to give it more of a structure and at least have something that we can talk about every week. And the first thing that we're going to do, I think, is we're going to read through Jordan Peterson's 12 Rules for Life, which Daniel and I have both read that before, but we're going to go through it again, and then the plan is every week start with talking about one of the chapters in this book. And then we may talk about other stuff too, and probably will, but...
Oh, yeah, it's going
to... spiral.
Yeah.
But we'll start with that, and then kind of go from there, and that way we have more of a structure and something to talk about. And I think, it'll give us some interaction too with the three of you that listen to this, if you guys wanted to read it with us, and then you kind of know what we're talking about with it. Like I said, we've both read it before. It is an excellent book. If you don't know anything about Jordan Peterson, he was a professor at the University of Toronto. I think he taught in Boston before that, from what I was looking in today. And anyway, University of Toronto, he's Canadian. And he was just a university professor up until, 4 or 5 years ago, whenever all the controversy happened. And he was teaching class. He had a clinical psychology.
He was also a clinical psychologist, right?
Yeah, he did that
practice.
And then he had written a book, Maps of Meaning. There's a very extensive, kind of dense book. I've started it and haven't read much at all. It's much more complicated than this book. And so he had done that, and then he had started putting his lectures online. I guess at the advice of one of his other colleagues, they said that he should do that because he was such a good speaker, and his classes were always packed. So he had been putting stuff on YouTube, but he was relatively unknown. And then from what I'd kind of heard this story, and I'd researched it more today to kind of give a background on him, he apparently the federal government of Canada, we're in the United States, so I don't know as much about them, but they passed some type of a law about protection for transgendered people. There's like civil protections for them, and on the face of it, I don't think it was what it really was. So the law said it was designed to give them like civil rights, so that they couldn't be discriminated against. But it was, when you read the law, the language was really ambiguous, so it was connected to another group in Canada that I cannot remember the name of, and it basically, when it said like discriminatory practices, it was like as set forth by this group. I can't remember the name of it. I should have written it down. But anyway, I was listening to one of Jordan Peterson's interviews today, and he goes, it's probably the most destructive organization in Canada. He's like, they're really far left and just crazy. And so essentially what it was it was going to be a hate crime if you did not call someone by their preferred pronouns, whatever those were. So it's not even calling like...
and even if you didn't know that they were... Right, like it didn't. Mm-hmm. You had to.
Yeah, basically
ask or predict what
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just he or she. Like, so if a biological man transitioned to a woman, like it wasn't like calling him, because a lot of transgender people don't want to even be called he or she.
Sure.
They want to be called, they, them, or Z or Zer or whatever.
Right.
Like there was when at the time that Jordan Peterson was interviewed, there was like 70 recognized pronouns. So it was just ridiculous. And from what I can tell, his position has always been like, I'm going to be respectful of who's in front of me. And listening to his interviews about it, I think it was up to a point. Like, so if like somebody that was clearly transitioning came in there and was, asked him to, biological male, asked him to call her and she, he was going to be respectful of that, but he seemed to kind of shy away from some of the more exotic, ridiculous stuff,
Sure.
the made-up words and things like that. It was the impression that I got from him. He was like, I'm going to be respectful, but what I won't go in for is compelled speech.
Mm-hmm.
And so he was like, I don't want the government telling me, the federal government telling me that I have to do this or it is a hate crime.
Right.
And so that's what he caught all the flack for, because he wrote a letter to his university saying, I'm not going to abide by this. He came out and made that stance public. Well, there were a bunch of protests against him because he did this. And there was one video that some transgendered individuals took and were like, came up to him and just basically, I mean, not physically, but just attacked him to where he couldn't even answer the questions. Like he was,
they just bombarded him and
and misrepresented him too. Like at one point they're calling him like a Nazi sympathizer and all that stuff, which is the most ridiculous thing, because he has spent his whole life, studying like the atrocities in Nazi Germany, the Soviet Union, that kind of stuff, and he is not at all that way. So that's a little bit of background on him. Since then, when that happened, he rose to fame, because he is a very dynamic speaker. He is a deep thinker about things, and he did a tour, which me and Daniel went to, saw one of his talks on this book here. He's done countless interviews. He is actually, the next installment in this, I think it's going to be called 12 More Rules for Life, is supposed to be dropping in March. So that's going to come out. And then he recently had a little bit of a life-threatening scare where he was addicted to, what was it?
I think it was benzos, yeah.
Anti-anxiety medication, something like that. His wife came down with cancer. They didn't give her any time to live. He kind of started taking this medication at the advice of his doctors, and then
And I mean, man, the spotlight was just on him at that time.
Yeah.
I mean, he was so big. He was touring. Everything was just, I can't imagine the stress that man was under.
Yeah, and I remember watching interviews with him, and he was like, he's very thoughtful when he's interviewed, so he doesn't often answer questions quickly, especially if it's a big question. He seems to kind of get his thoughts together, not say anything rash, but he kept saying, they're going to get me eventually. I'm going to misspeak, or I'm going to say something that's taken out of context.
Well, he seems to work things out by speaking.
Yeah.
Like in his, instead of thinking it out and then coming up with the answer, it's like he works it out while he's in his words as he's, it's an interesting way to answer a question. He
seems to, and I think they said this in this introduction somewhere, that he works out his thoughts as he's speaking about them.
Right.
Yep. And so he needs that. But for me, this dude has been I don't agree with him on everything.
Sure.
Obviously. And, I'm careful about, or I want to be careful about putting men on a pedestal, because they're always going to disappoint you at some point.
Sure.
But for me, he's been one of the more influential people to me, and he seems to be one of the most sincere figures like this because he seems to have a genuine humility about him,
right? And
he actually wants to help people.
Yeah, I would agree. I think so.
Yeah, so I'm extremely drawn to him. Not just, you could listen to him for hours and not get tired of it, and he's going to make you think and everything, but it isn't he's not preaching at you. It's
right.
He's trying to work out.
Yeah. Yeah, and man, that's the best part. It's it stimulates you to think, and what kind of content does that? There's not much.
Yeah,
most of it's just drowning things out and not thinking.
Yeah,
that's what most of it's created for, is to not think for a little while.
Yeah,
and it's refreshing.
Yeah, and he does it in a way too. I think we've talked in this podcast before about Mark Passio, and they obviously wouldn't agree on everything.
Oh no.
But they do have a lot of the same topics, messages, that kind of thing. And if you listen to Mark Passio, he comes off as, I've got it figured out. This is what it is.
Right.
Don't be stupid. Do it the right way.
Right.
And he's right about a lot of stuff, most of the stuff he says. But I don't know that tone is good for people.
Probably not.
Yeah.
Because it just comes off abrasive and off-putting.
Yeah.
You know? And I think they would benefit from talking to each other.
Probably. Because I do think that Mark Passio has a little bit more of it worked out than Jordan Peterson does. I think Jordan Peterson's a little bit too trusting of the government and institutions.
Sure.
But I do think that a lot of times, I'm sure people listen to Mark Passio and they're like, fuck this guy.
Right. Just because of this abrasiveness. Like, it's harsh.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like the guy, but he is arrogant about some of the stuff. And so, I know that you can get that way to a point to, if you've been teaching something for 20 years and you've really looked into it and you've just had people attacking you and misrepresenting you.
It's going to be hard not to be that way.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, you can't blame the guy too much, but at the same time, he's hurting himself and his message.
Yeah. Yeah. So, anyway, that's what we're doing. And so, our plan is to do one of these 12 rules every week until we make our way through the book. This week, we're just doing like the introduction to it. There is a foreword and like an overture. The foreword, let's see who wrote this. It wasn't him. The foreword was Norman Doidge, I guess is how you say his name. And it sounds like, isn't he like he was one of his professors, like a colleague of his?
Yeah, he was also a professor at the University of Toronto, I believe.
Yeah, and he wrote this. The foreword, and then the overture is obviously written by Jordan Peterson himself, telling kind of how the book came into existence or whatever. So we're going to go through that today and just talk about that, and then next Sunday we're going to do the first rule or whatever. So
I don't know what you got.
Well, he starts it out talking about the need for rules and like why would we want rules?
Right. It seems like shit.
Yeah. Why would you want somebody telling you what to do? Aren't there enough rules? Why would people actually want rules? But so like on the second page of this, I wrote, and this is the second time through this, but the first time I wrote in there, discipline equals freedom. And I got that from Jocko Willink, who's wrote a book. I haven't read his book labeled that, but I have listened to enough of his stuff that I know what he means by that. And I think it's the same thing here. Like, we have to have some set of rules for ourselves, boundaries that are going to help us look to the long term and work towards long term as opposed to short term gratification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise we become like a slave to the chaos around us. There's no way to climb out of it. If you don't have any structure, any discipline in your life, you're not free because you're trapped by that, and I don't know. I think the other side of that would be that there could be too many ridiculous rules that don't benefit you either, which then you would be a slave to those.
Yeah.
The way that there are tons of ridiculous rules that the government has imposed on us that are not freeing at all. Yeah. But that's not the same as a discipline so that you become a better person tomorrow. Yeah. So.
And I think that's for me has been what I've struggled with like most of my life. So it's a good thing I'm reading through this again because I don't, just the way my mind works, like I like being analytical. So I just naturally analyze things and try to figure out the best way to do them. And that part doesn't seem like work or hard to me. Like I can sit down and figure out something like that, and it's almost fun for me to do that, right? Right. But the problem that I've always had all my life is I think about the best way to do something, and then I don't have the discipline to actually do it.
To bring it to fruition.
Yeah. So I just don't do the things that I have put in my mind of this would be the best way to behave. Right. And part of it is just I'm not self-disciplined. I need to be more, I can do the stuff like that has consequences for it. Like I'm going to get up and go to work and all that stuff because if I don't do that.
Right. You lose your house. My
family
you can't eat.
Can't provide for them. All that stuff. Like so, that part isn't hard, but it's like for me, like I think it would be better if I went to bed earlier stopped drinking at all, went to bed earlier, got up in the morning, went to the gym before I went to work, because that's really the only opportunity I had to do that during the day.
Right.
With my children and everything. So, and like, that would be better for me, but having not done that, like, that's, it's easier just to do the easy thing and then not worry about what the long-term ramifications of that are.
Right. And that's definitely the easy path, and we're all guilty of falling into that. I think most of us know it would be good to get up and go work out. You know what I mean? Like, it's like, okay, yeah. I mean, there's so many things in my life that would make it better if I was a little more disciplined, you know, but it is hard. It's hard because the easier thing to do is just go, this is a problem for tomorrow.
Yeah. That's that Simpson thing or whatever. I've never watched The Simpsons, but like apparently there was a episode of that where like Homer was like, I don't know, contemplating doing something destructive that would feel good at the time, and he was like, he just did it, and he goes, well, that's tomorrow Homer's problem.
Yeah, that's future Homer's problem.
I'm gonna have fun. And I think that's probably the biggest struggle, I don't know, for a lot of people, is having the discipline to do what you need to do in the moment that may not feel good.
Right.
So you can have a long-term reward from
it's hard to do that because you don't get anything right now.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, But,
yeah. Yeah. So, and he says that on the second page here because he was talking about the story of Moses in the Bible and how, the golden calf, like Moses left and, came down with rules, and because Moses wasn't there, the people had all started partying and made a false god and all this stuff. And he says, but the story of the golden calf also reminds us that without rules, we quickly become slaves to our passions, and there's nothing freeing about that.
Right.
And that's absolutely true. I mean, constantly chasing a dopamine hit of whatever.
That's self-inflicted slavery, like that's only good in the moment. And then when that moment's gone, you've got to try to find that moment again.
Yeah.
And so you're not.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
so like,
it's a repetitive cycle of.
Yeah.
Searching for whims, I guess.
Yeah, just that next dopamine hit, whether it's, drugs, alcohol, freaking pornography.
Sure.
Food.
Right.
Being lazy and, instead of, reading a book to better yourself, just turn on some mindless television to watch and just, not want to deal with it. And,
man,
I don't know.
I gotta get my shit together.
Yeah, we do. And then it goes on to say, like, after that, he's like, and the story suggests something more. Unchaperoned and left to our own untutored judgment, we are quick to aim low and worship qualities that are beneath us. And I think we do that because it feels good. You get that dopamine hit.
Right. Man. That's hard to break out of.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. You can see how easy it is to fall into that. And, especially with no guidance, like no understanding of anything beyond that, Yeah. With especially today's world where that's all there is. Like, everything's about that next hit of dopamine, really. And it's zoning out and in the moment, feeling good, and we'll deal with it later.
It's funny because I'm just, as a guy, related to things about, like, I don't know, sexual temptation or that kind of thing. I remember when I was much more buying into Christianity, like, I had kind of an epiphany, because obviously with Christianity, not only are you not supposed to look at pornography, if you see an attractive woman, you're not supposed to lust after her.
Yeah, exactly. That's supposedly the same as committing adultery, right? Like, yeah.
Which, I mean, I get it. There's something to that. Like, especially if you're married, like, I don't know, like, I would not want my wife drooling over another guy, and so it's probably not a good thing to, even outside of Christianity, just lust over people or whatever.
Yeah.
But there's something about that visual. This looks good. I just want to stare at it. And I remember having the thought once, like, I probably hate that woman that I'm looking at. Like, if I knew her, like, and that
she's
worked
probably
for a little
fucking
bit.
horrible.
Yeah, because you could look at her and be like, if she's, showing her body off in a way, or she probably believes the exact opposite of everything from me, and would make me miserable.
Yep.
And that's the logical thing, but for some reason with us, there's
that lizard brain kicks in.
Yeah.
It's hard to it's so hard to put off the immediate for the future.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I don't think we'll ever get to a point where you can do that in every aspect, but
no.
But man, if you could start doing little pieces of it,
it would definitely be helpful.
Yeah. Shit would start getting better. Yeah, absolutely. And that's basically what this book is about. It's I don't know, that's part of the message anyways, is getting your crap in order, Yeah.
Yeah. And then, man, he just goes on to tell about, like, I guess how he first got to know Jordan Peterson. He talks about, like, some, I guess, colleagues of theirs or friends of theirs would have these parties where they would go around, they would, just talk to each other about politics or whatever it was.
Right.
And people of different spectrums. And I think he said in here they were from, like, they were both born in the Soviet Empire.
Yeah.
And so it was really, the friends of theirs were.
Right, that through the parties.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so they would all get together and talk, and then when they would get together and talk, they would, like, it was kind of freeing for them.
Right, because they were so shut down from where they were from. You couldn't have an open conversation about just what you thought. It was so restricted, and so that was something they really loved to do.
Yeah.
And didn't he mention something about, I don't remember what other scenario it was, but there were parties that they would go to or he would go to, and that there were two separate types of parties. There was the original first part of the party where people were just kind of standing around and doing their thing, and then as people left, the people who really wanted to get into some real conversation in the wee hours of the morning type of thing would start discussing these bigger topics that were and what he was saying was these parties with these two gentlemen, as soon as people got there, that's what it ran into. It was everybody felt free to speak, and that's how you come to truth. That's
and ironically, like what he's describing here, and it's probably not ironic. It's probably they're thinking about what Jordan Peterson got famous for was his thing. He was like, when you compel speech, people need to be able to. He said this in an interview. You need to be able to speak and talk things out, where you're essentially not allowed to think.
Right.
And he's like, if we don't think, then that's the same shit that led to Soviet Russia, Nazi Germany, all of that stuff. And what's scary is that's happening. I mean, I know that was in Canada, but it's happening here.
Oh, it's happening everywhere. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, it's
not really the government coming out after you here, but everybody else, those shut you down and make it where, you can't work if you have an opinion that's outside of the norm.
Yeah, I mean, that's crazy, isn't it? I mean, it's just a conversation. Like, nobody on either side is saying that they're right.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I mean, at least they shouldn't be. It's just, let's talk. Let's, this is where I'm at. This is where you're at. Let's have the conversation. And that's how you get to answers.
Yeah. And they've turned it into, though, and this is the problem with, like, hate speech and that kind of stuff. Because I disagree with someone does not mean that I hate them. Like,
no. Yeah.
And maybe I'm the wrong one, but I'll never figure that out
if we can't debate it, if we can't sit down and talk about it, you know.
Yeah.
It's crazy, man. It's so unfortunate that society is going that direction.
Yeah.
You know.
Because even with the whole transgender thing, like, there's a conversation to be had there. Mm-hmm. And we're not having it because if you question whatever the farthest left thing that they say, then you are automatically a bigot,
right?
And that's one of the things that bothers me most about having been in the Christian community and come out of that and like listening to other points of view, like these agnostic people. It's like they hate Christianity and the right so much that they do that exact same thing. Their logic will be airtight when they're talking about like Christianity or the Bible,
but then they're crazy because they're so far. Like, I highlighted this because maybe it says Ideologies are substitutes for true knowledge, and ideologues are always dangerous when they come to power because a simple-minded, I-know-it-all approach is no match for the complexity of existence.
Yeah.
You know, and like that's... Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What page was that on?
That is on... You had to do Roman numerals, didn't you?
What are the letters? I'll tell you.
XIV.
14?
All right.
Ethan would say that's because you're homeschooled.
Yeah, that's probably it.
Yeah.
He's right.
Yeah.
It's at the bottom of page 14.
Yeah, because I highlighted the one before, the paragraph before that, and said ideologies are simple ideas disguised as science or philosophy that purport to explain the complexity of the world and offer remedies that will perfect it. Ideologues are people who pretend they know how to make the world a better place before they've taken care of their own chaos within. The warrior identity that their ideology gives them covers over that chaos. That's hubris, of course, and one of the most important themes of this book is set your house in order first, and Jordan provides practical advice on how to do this. And I mean, that's absolutely right.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, I don't think of myself as a Christian anymore in the traditional sense of that, but that is something that is at least a good thing in the Bible. Like, you're supposed to, in order to be a leader of Christianity,
You got to have your stuff together.
Yeah. And then before you can go telling other people what they should and shouldn't be doing.
It's so simple, yet so lost.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it's not in the minds of people.
No.
But it's such a simple concept, really.
Yeah.
Like, how could you get anything else in order if you haven't gotten your own house in order first, you know? And, man, that'll make you shut the fuck up a lot of times. It should, yeah. If you grasp that, you're like, okay, let me keep my mouth shut because I got some things I need to work on before I'm starting to criticize this or criticize that. You know, it's
well, and that's the thing, and it leads to exactly like if you search on YouTube the video that got Jordan Peterson famous or whatever. It's the video that we were talking about of these transgender activists. I don't know if they were all transgender, but they were all just coming at him.
Right.
But they're basically calling him a Nazi and a fascist and all this stuff. And he is literally arguing the government should not tell people what they can say.
Right.
But these morons
don't.
They don't get it. They're calling him a fascist while they're being the fascists. And that's that exactly. They don't know how to think. They've grown up in a society that has taught them to not think. Like these, be a good boy and girl. These are the rules. These are the going party lines. Jordan Peterson says that one time. He goes, "Man, I can't." I don't know if it was a guy or a girl. He was like, "I can't talk to you." He was like, "You're so hard to converse with because you're just full of rhetoric." It's like you're just, he was just saying, you're just repeating.
Right.
What
it's
heard.
the buzzwords and the rhetoric. It's not a real conversation.
Yeah.
It's not. You're not thinking. You're just parroting.
Yeah. And most of that video, it's funny because they'll be just screaming, "I think transgender people will have rights," and you'll just hear, or should have rights, and you're just hearing Jordan Peterson go, "I agree with that." And like most of that video is them screaming things at him and going, "I agree with that."
Right.
But they're just so caught up on
he's the enemy, and it doesn't matter what he says. We're gonna, it's crazy, man.
Yeah. Yeah. So like, I don't know, the whole, I think the overarching idea of this book is the Taoist idea of like the yin and yang. So if you know the symbol of the yin yang, it's, the white, it's the circle, the white field with the black dot on it, the black field with the white dot. And his idea is that you don't want to be too far into either one of those, because the white represents order and the black dot in it is chaos, indicating the likelihood that things can change to be chaotic in a second.
Right.
And the same with the chaos with the white in it is the order that you have the ability to change chaos to order.
And it's balance because they're they're equal.
Yeah. And his idea is
to walk the line in between the two, right?
That's right. That's where personal growth happens, is when you're you're not so far in order that you never take a risk, you never grow, you never get out of your own echo chamber to hear an idea that you've never heard before. You know?
Right.
There's a way to be too far in order. However,
you can't get too comfortable.
Yeah.
Because then you never grow.
That's right.
But
you can't be too far into chaos either. You'll just be undone.
Yeah.
Like, you can't just...
Nothing's ever going to get done. You're never going to...
Yeah, and probably more people are in that scenario where they're not really planning out. They're not really... I don't know. They're not thinking about what they're doing. Rather, they're just letting life happen to them. And I think that's what his point in this book. Like, let's think about what we're doing. Let's do what would be advantageous for us and have the discipline to do that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
But it is funny in this is he's such an interesting guy because like he's very much again like he always, if you listen to him talk, he'll talk about like the Gulag Archipelago, which was the guy writing about the concentration camps. I think he was in one in Russia and Germany.
Jesus.
Like, I could have this wrong. This is me saying I don't know what I'm talking about again. But it's been a while.
The backbone of this podcast.
Ignorance. But he, from what I understand, he was in a Solzhenitsyn. I guess that would be Russia. So I think in one of the world wars he was captured by Germany, and he was in a German concentration camp. Well, when the war was over or whatever, they sent him back to Russia. And then he was in... And then the Russians didn't trust him because he was with the Germans for so long.
So he's in the Gulag.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So, like, the dude wrote and, so he is very much...
Yeah. I've said over the years that I want to read that. I know it's a hard read, but man, I mean... To go through both of those things and then still be able to produce something like that is incredible. You know, to not just be... To not fall into nihilism after something like that. Because... Just, fuck everything.
Yeah,
you know?
And everybody.
And everyone, because, man, I mean, the atrocities that man saw and went through is crazy.
But, so, he's always talking about that stuff and how bad, communism and that kind of stuff is. Dictators, totalitarianism, like, he's always against that, but apparently his house is full of Soviet-era art.
But it's to remind him of that, and to...
Yeah, he said on there, the paintings were not there because Jordan had any totalitarian sympathies. It's on page 12. But because he wanted to remind himself of something he knew he and everyone would rather forget, that over 100 million people were murdered in the name of utopia. Which, that's a crazy idea in itself, right?
Yeah.
That most things that happen, like most evils, they're in the name of something good.
Yeah.
They don't say, I'm going to kill you because I like watching people die.
Right. No, that's always the creed of the elite. Yeah. It's for everybody's good. That's why we're stripping you of all your rights, all your freedoms, is because it's for the betterment of everyone. We're going to create this utopia. But in doing so, we have to eliminate everyone that goes against it or everyone who wants to buck the system, and that's how 100 million people died in Soviet Russia.
Yeah, because when you start thinking that the ends justify the means, that's when stuff gets...
fucking hairy.
Yeah.
Quick.
Because you can justify anything if you think you're working towards a greater good. I mean, any of these ideologies across the spectrum, Nazi Germany, Soviet-era Russia, ISIS that's doing what they're doing, America bombing, the shit out of Syria and these countries because, God knows what reason.
Sure.
Every war we've ever been in has been...
I mean, right now with the virus, it's the ends are justifying the means. It's you can't leave, you have to wear a mask, you need to get the vaccine because it's for the betterment of everyone. Yeah, it's not.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, it's crazy.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
But I don't know where I was going with this.
Yeah, and he goes on to say there, it took getting used, and this is still on page 12 at the bottom, it says, it took getting used to the semi-haunted house decorated by a delusion that had practically destroyed mankind, but it was eased by his wonderful and unique spouse Tammy, who was all in, who embraced and encouraged this unusual need for expression. These paintings provided a visitor with the first window onto the full extent of Jordan's concern about our human capacity for evil in the name of good, and the psychological mystery of self-deception. How can a person deceive himself and get away with it? An interest we share.
Isn't that insane?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, that's something I've said since this pandemic has happened. You know, a lot of these people who are so, I don't know, they want to force everyone to obey, you know, by, well, you have to wear this mask, or you're a piece of shit if you don't get your vaccine or whatever. Like, and this may be harsh, but to me, they're no different than the Germans who were gassing these Jews. They're just doing what they're told. You know, you're deceiving yourself into thinking that what you're doing is right, and you're, I mean, I don't know, how far does it go? I mean, what if tomorrow they say people who aren't obeying, kill them? Yeah. You know, they've been given the authority to do it, just like they were given the authority to tell people, well, you have to put that mask on before you come in here. Yeah. Or you can't come in unless you have your vaccine, which we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I don't see it not coming to that. Yeah. You know, it's we don't realize what we're capable of until we're given a little bit of power. Yeah. You know, until we're told it's okay to do that, because it's the whole ends justifying the means thing. Yeah. You know, and it's you know, everybody would say I wouldn't have done that. There's no way that if I was told to gas those Jews that I would have done it. Yeah. Yet I've had 17-year-olds yell at me in places because I didn't have my mask on. Yeah. You know what I mean? And I know it's not the same. Yeah. It's definitely not the same. I'm not saying that it is, but it's along the same lines.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, and this is a good experiment for you. If you want to know what this is like, take off a mask and try to walk in somewhere that's going to tell you. Now, a lot of places, they'll have it on the door, and they won't enforce it. And then you will find some places where you walk in, and the guy's like, listen, man, you got to have a mask. I want to come in here. My boss made me do this, or whatever. Like, those people are fine. I believe that maybe they wouldn't have done it. You know, maybe they wouldn't. There's a line in their head. But, like, I would say the people that the tone of most people that do that, if you listen to them, it is you got to put a mask on. Yeah, get your mask on. Right, and like that.
Yeah, they're so happy. Yeah, that they finally get to.
Yeah, you can tell they just want to tell somebody to do it, and they're mad and they're angry. They're just they're so passionate about this. Like, those people, I don't believe, if you give them the power and you put into their head that the people are dangerous, I don't believe that they're not capable of anything.
Right. You know? Right. And that's crazy to think about. Yeah. You know, I mean, I used to think, you know, there's no way I would do that. You know what I mean? There's no way I would ever do those things. Yeah. And I still want to believe that I wouldn't, especially now with digging into certain things. But like, man, I didn't think I was capable of that, but everyone's capable of doing atrocious things. You know, it's scary a little bit to know what you could be capable of. Yeah. Then given the right twist of your mind by whoever. Yeah. You know, it's which is why, you know, like you said in the beginning, it's like I don't like following any one man and putting him on a pedestal, because it's dangerous. It's always dangerous to put any one individual on a pedestal, because you follow anybody to a T, you become radical. Yeah. Become dogmatic.
And you stop thinking. Like,
because they think for you, and they tell you what to believe and what to think. And so you don't have to think, which is easy. Yeah. Right? That's great. Listen, that's nice.
Yeah. Even with the whole Christianity thing, since I've kind of walked away from that, like there are times, man, I'd love to still be a Christian. Like, I had a book, and it told me what to do, and like if I had a question, it was in that book, and I just knew that was right, and there was a group of people that were like, yeah, that's right, and we're all going to do that, and you don't actually have to think, you know?
Right, and it's I'm with you, man. Like, sometimes I wish I could find that, and I think after I left that, like, you still search for that because you're so used to having something to look to that it becomes where you're just like, okay, well, maybe that wasn't right, but where is that, so that I can just fall back into that same groove.
Oh yeah.
And it's
you're looking
it
for
takes yes, exactly, and it takes a while to get yourself out of that mentality of like, there just isn't that.
No, there's not anybody that gets it all.
Mm-mm.
Jordan Peterson's great. There are a dozen people that I listen to and like trust on certain subjects to varying degrees. Like Jocko Willink, I love listening to that dude. He's great. He's entertaining. He has so much good shit.
Right.
But he is dyed in the wool, red, white, and blue. The military is right to be doing this stuff. Like I don't think he's right about that stuff. Mm-hmm. But I can still listen to him, and I know that I'm full of shit about some stuff that I know that I don't know what I'm full of shit about.
Yeah, and it's just, it's hard though, man. It's hard because we seem to be indoctrinated to want to follow some sort of leader because it's just easier to do that. It just is, and life's easier that way.
No, of course.
You know?
Much easier. Like and it gives, and two, like that idea of a utopia, whether it's like the Christian heaven or even the communist ideal, or it seems like a lot of the leftists now have this idea that if we make everyone equal, and not equal opportunity, but just
equal across the board,
equal and androgynous, then everything will be better, but it's just not going to be that way.
No.
And I mean, that kind of leads into, it would be great to think, if I just follow these rules, there won't be suffering. And like, if you follow, even with these, like, you follow all this stuff to a T, you're still going to have suffering.
Right.
You're just trying to minimize it for you and others.
Right. There was something in here I didn't highlight, but I liked.
I think it's probably 17 because I got it highlighted on page 17 at the top of the page.
I think this is, well, I was on, it's 16 and 17. It says, all the ancients, from Buddha to the biblical authors, knew what every slightly worn out adult knows, that life is suffering.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's...
Yeah. Yeah, and I went on to do the rest of it. If you are suffering or someone close to you that's sad, but alas, it's not particularly special.
Yeah.
We don't suffer only because politicians are dim-witted or the system is corrupt, or because you and I, like almost everyone else, can legitimately describe ourselves in some way as a victim of something or someone. It is because we were born human, and that we are guaranteed a good dose of suffering.
Yeah. I mean, that... I don't know. That's...
absolutely true.
Absolutely true.
Yeah.
And if you can just go ahead and wrap your head around that.
Yeah. And it's so funny how much
it's easier to deal with.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like...
Yeah.
You can lie to yourself as much as you want. You can act like it's not going to happen or whatever. But, like, given enough time, this life will cause suffering to every single person that is here.
Yeah.
And it's about how you deal with it.
Mm.
And
it's particularly bad in America. Like, if we could zoom out and get outside of what our box or our bubble, like, it's so ridiculous to see these people on these college campuses being brainwashed that they're being hunted because they're not white or they're transgender or they're gay or whatever it is, when it is just not the case. Like, if it was the case, we'd see it on the news every night. The news is run by the left. They want to push this agenda. If they had bodies, we'd see the bodies.
Yeah.
They don't have bodies, and these people have been conditioned through these victims. I mean, they say that to Jordan Peterson in that interview. One of them's like, listen, I was completely apolitical until I transitioned, and I had to do this. I was fighting for my life. No, you weren't, motherfucker.
No.
Like, you just weren't.
No.
Like, and go say that to somebody that's transgendered in Iran,
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Yeah, somewhere where there's real persecution against this shit. Where, like, the government will fucking kill you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's crazy, man.
Yeah.
It really is. Because, look, you might have some people that are just like, no, fuck that.
Yeah.
No, fuck you. I don't give a shit about what you want to be called. And, like, look, they're wrong. Because, like, that, I think Jordan Peterson has said it, where he's like, I wouldn't just mispronounce someone who asked me to say a certain thing. I mean, that's just rude. You know what I mean? Within reason, of course. But even the people who are completely just, no, I'm not doing it. Fuck you. Who care? Who are they?
I know.
To you,
and why do you give them space in your head?
Yeah. And that's something that's hard to deal with, because I think we all want to be accepted and we all want to be liked, and it's hard to separate that, where you're just like, it doesn't matter what they think, but in North America, it's like, come on.
Yeah, you're not.
No one's really,
No,
I mean,
not any of us suffering.
You're not suffering any more than any. No. Look, if you got a weird style, there's gonna be people who are gonna be like, fuck that guy. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like that. You know what I mean? Where it's just like, not everybody's gonna fucking like you.
No, and that's fine.
That's fucking fine.
Gonna like you, but you're not really being persecuted for this stuff here. Now, there is suffering and that kind of thing, but even that's minimized. Like, that's what. I don't remember who I was listening to this week, but they were like, talking about poverty, and like, poverty's terrible, but it's relative. Like, we call people in the United States, people that we consider poverty, they have TVs, they have smartphones, they have air conditioning. Yeah. Like, you can hate the rich people if you want to, but if you're sitting in the West...
If you're playing your Xbox or your PlayStation, and you're sitting in some, shitty apartment somewhere, and you don't have... any extra money in the bank or whatever, like, you're not really impoverished.
Right. Take a trip to Cambodia.
Yeah.
Look at what those people are doing. Like, and stop bitching.
Yeah.
Like, and what's funny is, like, even the opportunity here to crawl out of it. Like, yes, I firmly believe that the rich in America want to keep people poor and they want to siphon off of that stuff, but you can fucking do it here.
You can.
Like, still you can claw your way out of that and become rich and successful if you, and I don't care what you are, if you're transgendered, if you're not, whatever, if you're a woman, like, you can do that. It's been proven. We have people that we can look at. Yeah. It's not the caste system in India.
No. Yeah.
Yeah, it's, let me see.
And what is, I think I could be wrong on the statistic, but I think, like, if you make $36,000 a year, you're in the 1% of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, that's a lot of people here. Like, so many people here are in the 1% of the world, and these people are bitching.
Yeah.
And
that's
it's crazy.
That's household income. Yeah. What 2-person household can't make
$36,000?
Yeah, and you're in the 1%.
You can both work at fucking McDonald's and make that.
And that's only what your wages are going to be. If you're a 2-person household and you make $36,000, you're going to get government assistance here if you want it. Sure. And like, that's, so you're really making more. There's safety nets and that kind of thing, and it's funny when people in like America are like, eat the rich, complaining about these people, and you're like, guys, what? You can only say this if we stop at our borders, which you don't want us to have, by the way. Right. So if we go worldwide, then you're the one. Like,
you are the rich. You should be eating.
So sell your damn iPhone and send it to some dude in Cambodia.
Sure.
But you're not going to do that because, all you can see is what's in front of you.
Yeah. Yep.
So, I don't know. I thought it was interesting too, like, if we go to page like 18 on it, where it's talking about like millennials and their problems with, like, well, it starts talking about why younger people want rules and like they're gravitating towards it. And it's talking about how they get taught contradictory things to keep in their head at the same time, which I would say that most people would.
Like the relative means that there are no absolute rights or wrong, and then the what was the other?
Yeah, the first idea of teaching is that morality is relative, at best personal value judgment, which is absolutely what is taught in a lot of places, like in schools. Like,
there is no right and wrong. Yeah. It's a cultural thing or a, whatever.
Yeah, there is no truth. That's why you hear people say, "Well, speak your truth."
Right.
motherfucker, you don't have a truth.
No.
It's the true or it's not.
Right.
You can have like something that you believe, but that has no bearing on whether what you believe is true or not.
There is the truth that across cultures and time, there have been different rules that societies have adopted or discarded, and that's where this comes from. I mean, that's where this ideology comes from, I would say. But it's not, I don't know, it's not, it doesn't mean that there is no truth.
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that there is no
people, it just means some people were wrong,
Yeah.
Like they hadn't thought it out.
It means we need to talk.
Yeah, to figure out what's true.
Right.
And that's why postmodernism is terrible, because there is no right. All it sees is different classes of people or different types of people in power struggles, which is freaking ridiculous.
Yeah.
And that's where the idea that minorities can't be racist comes from, because they don't have any institutional power, which is fucking ridiculous. Daniel, does LeBron James have more power than you do?
I think so.
Yeah. If you get on Twitter and you tweet something out, does anybody give a shit?
No.
Yeah. He literally...
Matter of fact, when I tweet something out, I get fucking banned.
Yeah.
And I didn't even say anything bad. I just...
Trying to promote something.
Trying to
make $1.
Yeah, trying to make $1. LeBron James got $1. He don't get banned.
No.
So, yeah, I mean, that's just insane. It's fucking insane.
Yeah. And then he says on, like, the last paragraph on 19, he says, and so a generation has been raised untutored in what was once called aptly practical wisdom, which guided previous generations. Millennials, often told that they have received the finest education available anywhere, have actually suffered a form of serious intellectual and moral neglect. The relativists of my generation and Jordan's, many of whom became their professors, chose to devalue thousands of years of human knowledge about how to acquire virtue, dismissing it as passé, not relevant, or even oppressive. They were so successful at it that the very word virtue sounds out of date, and someone using it appears to be anachronistically moralistic and self-righteous. Like, so, yeah, I mean, we've basically been told there is no, right or wrong.
Right. Because people have chosen different rules for
and educated people
and
believe
times.
it. Like, you can have somebody that I know of that has their doctorate in childhood education and is a principal at a school, is just so far off the reservation of what she thinks, she's been in an echo chamber for so long that she believes everything these people say. And if you challenge her on it, she just screams and cries because she there's some part of the human brain, no matter how much you want to repress it, that is trying to logic out and be consistent with this stuff.
Right, which is, I think it says this a little bit further into the next page is like, people have always tried to create laws or rules for their societies, right?
Yeah.
They may not have gotten it 100% right on each one. And man, that made me think a lot about Tim's gonna say some shit, but the natural law stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I don't know. We're searching for that. We're searching because we know fundamentally in our DNA that there are some sort of rules, some sort of pattern, some sort of something that governs this. Like we're looking for it.
Cause and effect.
Yeah,
there's clearly consequences.
Right, and so there has to be some sort of moral code. There has to be some sort of something, and so people have constantly always tried to put that in place, put that into effect. I don't know. I mean, and I don't know. The natural law stuff definitely seems to make the most sense to me. I don't know that that's 100% the truth or not, but it that's what I think everyone's searching for, because there is something that governs this.
Yeah.
There is something.
Yeah.
Otherwise, there'd be no reason why over every generation, as far back as you can go, why people would be looking for some sort of moral code or laws to put into place, because, like you said, there is consequences for your actions.
Yeah. That's clear. You can see it, and and I'm sure Jordan Peterson would disagree with this. As an anarchist looking at this book, like I don't think he would agree with what I'm about to say. I don't think that these are rules for yourself. right?
Mm-hmm.
These are rules that you're putting to self-govern.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't rules that I don't think that the government should legislate this or someone should force anybody else into it.
No.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. Which, like you said, he's a little bit.
Yeah, he's a little bit of statist for sure.
A little bit. A little bit. It's okay, though. We can pull him out of it.
Yeah.
We just got to get him on here.
Yeah. I'm sure he would make us look stupid.
He would. He's so good at fucking talking. He would
Yeah.
talk circles around us. But
yeah. It's funny, on the 20, like in the middle, it says, leave aside that telling people you're virtuous. He talks about like how the only virtue really is virtue signaling now.
Yeah.
It's like getting online and talking about how virtuous you are. And he said, leave aside that telling people you're virtuous isn't a virtue. It's self-promotion. Virtue signaling is not virtue. Virtue signaling is quite possibly our commonest vice. Which is true. I mean, they're just like, it's not like you really, people get on there and say this stuff so that they can accumulate likes and validate that stuff.
Right.
You know, and it, I don't know, it's definitely, social media is probably killing us all.
Probably. But I mean, man, it's just, the mind is so easily manipulated.
Yeah.
And I mean, mine is too. I mean, everybody's mind is. But it's, I don't know. If you were born into it, and Ethan, if you, the public school system and the higher educations after that, like it's a form of brainwashing, every bit of it.
Yeah.
You know, it's a form of just, this is the way to think. We're going to tell you how to think. This is the truth. This is it. And don't think about it, you know. And so, I don't know. It.
Yeah. Yeah, like you need to question everything.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's good to have different, and we probably needed to be better about this on this podcast, having people on here with different viewpoints and stuff, and trying to talk.
Just talk and reason things out, and because fuck, I mean, we can't be right about everything, obviously.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. Yeah, so it was talking about that stuff and how, like you were talking about, they realized that different societies had different morals or whatever, but it didn't lead them to nihilism like in ancient Greece. It led them to philosophy.
Yeah,
Socrates.
exactly. Yeah, exactly. It led them
page 22
to philosophy. Yeah. So I mean, that's
so they started asking like, what's virtue? What's this other stuff? You know. And then in the middle of the page, he says, for the ancients, discovery that different people had different ideas about how practically to live did not paralyze them. It deepened their understanding of humanity and led to some of the most satisfying conversations human beings have ever had about how life might be lived. Likewise, Aristotle, instead of despairing about these differences in moral codes, Aristotle argued that though specific rules, laws, and customs differ from place to place, what does not differ is that in all places, human beings, by their nature, have a proclivity to make rules, laws, and customs. To put this in modern terms, it seems that all human beings are, by some kind of biological endowment, so ineradicably concerned with morality that we create a structure of laws and rules wherever we are. The idea that human life can be free of moral concerns is a fantasy. And what's funny about that is, like, so these philosophers value diversity of thought, and that is the one thing you're not allowed to have.
No.
It's so funny because they think like putting somebody of all these different skin colors and genitalia
is diversity,
and it's not if they all think the same thing.
No. Yeah, we have to be able to speak.
Yeah.
To figure out some shit.
Yeah.
You know,
because there's probably, I mean, even like C.S. Lewis said that when he was talking about reading different theologians. He's like, you don't want to read everybody from the same time period because different time periods are going to have
some different opinions on things, different viewpoints. Yeah,
and you're never going to make you're never going to make progress if everybody that you talk to thinks the exact same thing.
Right. Yep.
And that's funny. At the bottom of the page, he says, "Scratch the most clever postmodern relativist professor's Mercedes with a key, and you'll see how fast the mask of relativism, with the pretense that there can be neither right or wrong, and the cloak of radical tolerance comes off."
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I mean, look, if he's preaching that shit, right? I go scratch the fuck out of his car. Well, there is no good and evil.
No.
The way I was brought up, that's fine.
Yeah.
That's
and
okay.
Personal property is bullshit, right?
Right. Yeah.
Anyway.
So why are you mad?
Yeah.
But he's definitely going to be fucking mad. Because that's his fucking car.
Yeah.
You know, it's insanity.
And
really.
that's why I think natural law, like you said, makes the most sense with this stuff. Because like that's consistency. That is individual liberty. That's the only thing we have. Right.
Yeah.
You know, you can tell somebody, but if you steal from somebody, if someone steals from you, if somebody lies to you, if somebody, attacks you, you instantly know that's wrong.
Absolutely. Everybody knows that.
Yeah. And if you know it's wrong, it's happening to you.
Yep.
You should know it's wrong. And that goes on to everything, right? So maybe I'm real big into health, and I think I'm not. But if I was and I thought, all this, everything's bad for you, you need organic stuff, which, whatever. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to drink milk straight from the cow, eat eggs straight from the chicken, but technically that's illegal because we haven't pasteurized
it, right?
Right. So I don't want the government telling me not to do that. So that's what I think's best for me. But if that guy over there wants to put heroin in his arm, or whatever, like, why should I? It isn't affecting you if I eat the eggs. Mm-hmm. It's not affecting me
if you shoot the heroin.
If you shoot the heroin, we can have a conversation about that. Mm-hmm. If you have a good reason I shouldn't, or I have good reasons you shouldn't shoot heroin, then that's
right. But at the end of the day, no one's forcing the other one.
No.
To be like the other one.
Yeah, until somebody with a gun comes.
It's almost like the answer to some of this philosophy they've been trying to hash out.
Yeah.
And it still needs to be talked about. It still needs to be hashed out itself.
Yeah.
Because it's not all worked out, but it's like it's the, I don't know, it's the beginning of it, right? Like the natural law stuff, which is, I mean, that's where we've been searching for this. We've been trying to figure out some of these things, and I don't know. I haven't found anything yet to just throw that away, to throw the natural law stuff away.
Yeah. Because
it's like, it just makes sense. Like, everyone knows, like you said, if you take something from someone else in any form, we all know that's wrong.
Yeah. And no individual
across the board, regardless of culture, regardless of time, that stands true.
Yeah.
Or seems to.
Yeah.
And we can talk about it. If someone disagrees, we can have that conversation.
Yeah.
We can try to hash that out. And if you have good points, let's talk about it.
Yeah. And it's funny because, like, the main thing we're saying is that everyone is created equal. Like, right? That it doesn't matter what color you are, what gender you are, what you believe, what you think. Nobody has the right to take your shit. Nobody has the right to compel you to do or say anything like that.
Yeah.
None of that. But it's funny because it goes the opposite. And I swear most people, like, not most people, but a lot of people on the left would call me a fascist for saying this when I'm saying people shouldn't control other people.
Yeah. Yeah. Even your transgenderism.
Yeah. That's fine. Like,
it's fine.
I don't think it's a good idea to lop off parts of your body.
Probably not.
But if you want to do that,
it ain't my business.
No.
And I would never want there to be a law in place to say that you couldn't.
Sure, no, that's fine. Like, that's what you want to do.
Because it boils down to, and this book says a lot about this, is it's personal responsibility.
Yeah.
You can do whatever, you do it, but then you have to pay the consequences for whatever you do.
Yeah.
You just...
Yeah.
That's it.
I know, and it's something that, I don't know. You don't have the right to legislate that and make someone...
Yeah.
Yeah. Not do what they want to with their own stuff. And then, I don't know. So, anyway, that was pretty much... Did you have anything else on that?
No, I think that's about it.
The overture wasn't a whole lot. So that's the part that he wrote. It wasn't much other than telling, like, how this book came to be or whatever. That he had basically written Maps of Meaning, which is, like, a more in-depth thing of this.
Okay.
And that he had... tried to write a more accessible version of that. He said, but I was just kind of copying myself because I wasn't into it, and the text reflected that it wasn't very good. He said then he got enamored with this social media site Quora, which allows anyone to ask a question, then anyone can answer it, and the community votes on whether the answers are helpful or not.
Right.
So the ones
and he was getting like a ton of likes or something.
For his 12 rules. He said he had answered a few questions and not gotten many. And then, I don't know that I underlined this. I was just reading it, so I don't know if I could find it. But he basically was like, there was some question like, what are the things, the basic things you need to know for a fulfilled life? And he started posting these rules, and it got so upvoted, like, that he
was like, all right.
Yeah, he said, like, only, I don't know, a very small minority ever receives as many upvotes as these got.
Right.
So, like, he knew it was in there, and then he had a student that liked his rules so much that he went on to be an author, a fiction author, and the main girl in his book would post these rules on her like refrigerator or whatever it was. And so like he could see that it was impacting people and decided it was important to
write it down.
Yeah.
Well, sweet.
Yeah. So
next week is going to be chapter 1.
Yeah. So the first chapter is rule 1: stand up straight with your shoulders back. It is not too long. It's about 30 pages. So we're going to get through that this week. Talk about that next week. If anyone at all is listening to this and wants to do it, you're welcome to
read along.
Read through it, and, we'll go through that, and then each of the subsequent weeks go through the other chapters to it. So, anyway.
There it is, man.
Yep.
We're back. It's been some months, but we're back.
Yep.
Well,
be more committed to doing this.
Yeah, definitely.
So, anyway.
Well, there it is. Thanks for listening. All right, we'll see you next week.
See ya.